Alrighty, so we got a huge fight here. Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. So Jan, he's coming in. He'll be 38 at the time of this one, so he's getting up there in age. Really impressive turnaround in his career. He was 2-4 in his first 6 UFC fights. So that was only 3.5 years ago. So he's really turned his career around. He's 8-1 since then. He's the light heavyweight champion, and now he's fighting in one of the biggest fights of 2021. For Adesanya, he'll be coming in with a 2-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. It's his first time at 205. I think Jan will definitely be the bigger guy in there, because Adesanya is not a huge 185er as well. Like, he'll come in underweight and he doesn't have to cut too much weight as well. He's big, he's tall, he's long, but like his frame and his strength, I think Jan will definitely have a big advantage there. But yeah, he will be coming in with the cardio advantage in this one as well. Like, I've seen Jan slow down even in low pace fights, whereas Adesanya will just keep going with the volume, even in high pace fights. But, there's a bit of an unknown there with the extra weight that he'll be putting on to get to 205. Adesanya used to fight at heavyweight in kickboxing, so he's used to fighting these big guys. But in MMA, it's a little bit different because they can grab you and try and take you down the mat and all that stuff. So, we'll see how it goes. It's a really interesting matchup, and we'll start to break it down now. Alright, so for the striking for these two, where I believe it will be played out for the most part. So Adesanya is equally proficient in either stance. He's got really nice kicking game. Jan can be a little bit flat-footed at times, so kind of leaves him to be leg kicked. But he has shown a propensity to check leg kicks as well, which is quite rare in the UFC. But yeah, seems to do it a fair bit. Adesanya, he keeps his hands low at all times, relies on head movement, upper body movement, and his footwork to evade strikes, and he uses that at all ranges. In the Whittaker fight, when Whittaker was blitzing him and getting into the pocket and start throwing hooks, Adesanya would just rely on his head movement. Obviously, it's very good. He's got very good vision in the pocket, but it's just a dangerous proposition when you're going against Blachowicz, who has huge power in both hands, especially his right hand. But for Jan, his game is a bit more straightforward. He will charge forward, just throwing a combo, basic combo like a 1-2, 2-3, 3-2. He's basically always chaining together combos. He will end a combination with a kick, like a leg kick or a body kick, which he did really well in the Dominic Reyes fight, which pretty much broke Reyes down and then kind of enforced Reyes to get a little too over-aggressive because he was falling behind on the volume, because Blachowicz was landing so many combinations and just landing the better shots in general, really. But the thing with Jan is that he can be a little predictable with his strike and defense, so pretty much just to evade strikes, he'll just simply kind of step back, just retreat, not really throw anything for the most part at distance, and then he'll just re-enter his range after that. So it's definitely something Izzy can exploit there. Izzy makes reads very quickly. It usually takes around 5 minutes or a round to do it, and then he has his game plan set from there. But Jan can also lean back with his chin in the air, especially when he's pressured. So if an opponent's trying to pressure him, land some boxing combinations, he'll lean back with his chin in the air. Obviously, he has a strong chin. I don't believe he's been... he got KO'd by Thiago Santos, but I think that's it. That's the only time he's been finished in the UFC. I want to say that. But yeah. So, yeah, strong chin as well. Generally, how these guys win. Błachowicz, as we talked about before, he's got considerable power in both hands. He's really found his power late in his career. He's good at coercing opponents into fighting his type of fight. It's a very slow paced fight, and it's definitely something Błachowicz is very good at, because in the Reyes fight, Reyes is normally a guy who likes to move around a lot. Kind of like a sparring type of vibe. he usually likes to have in fights, but Błachowicz was just like standing there right in front of him, flat-footed, and then Reyes kind of adopted the same kind of style, and then eventually started using his footwork, but then had really hard time like closing the distance against Blachowicz without getting like blasted on the way in. So yeah, he's really good at that as well. Throughout his whole career, he's been very good at that. Also, yeah, strong chin, talked about before. So for Stylebender, or Israel Adesanya, he's a really good striker. He's probably the best I've seen in the UFC, in my opinion. He's well versed, has a lot of kicks in his arsenal, has decent boxing as well, has a few things that, give me cause for concern, but for the most part, yeah, really good striker. Uses a lot of feints. He's got really high fight IQ, really high striking IQ, comes in with quality game plans, and he's really good at sticking to them, which is why he's the champ and why he's undefeated. He's also improving on his takedown defense. I'd say it's at a really good level at the moment. He was able to stuff Bronson's takedowns with ease, was able to stuff Romero's blast doubles, which aren't hard to do, but, Romero isn't chain wrestling, so, and he wasn't throwing too much on the feet or setting the takedowns up, so it wasn't hard to read those takedown shots, but still, feather in the cap nonetheless. He's got good recoverability as well. We have seen him hurt in the UFC, and he has recovered quite quickly in the Kelvin Gastelum fight. So how these guys lose? Jan can be a little low volume. I'd say his style definitely does favour 5 rounds. But yeah, just generally low volume. I'd imagine Israel will be out-voluming him. He'll be outlanding him in this fight, is what I should say. So for Israel Adesanya, it's hard to pick points of where he does lose fights because he's never lost in 20 fights. But he, like a few things that maybe Jan could give him problems with, is that he's such a slow starter because he's making reads, of course, but Jan can really put a pace on, and then really, what's that? I'm just chucking my phone away from next to me. So yeah, he can, really put a pace on in the first 2 rounds. Win the first 2, and then Izzy has to win the last 3 to, take Jan's belt. Or knock him out. But, so he can really put the pressure on like that. Also, he's really tentative when he's versing power punches, such as Romero. He was really tentative in that fight. Not sure what was going on. And even early in the Costa fight, I get that he's making reads, and, when he did make his read, he knocked him out. But, yeah, he was just leg kicking at the start, and it's just, Yan has that one-punch knockout power. It's just dangerous if you're not going to throw any offense back in the first round, where Yan can just let off his combinations or put the pressure on a little bit. So that's what I'd like to see him do. But the other path to victory for these guys, for Israel, so a lot of feints. Yan has shown a tendency to bite on feints, especially on the back foot. So if you can, get your feints going, be on the front foot, keep your distance with the jab, the teeps, the leg kicks, the lead leg offense. I think that'd be a good game plan just to start off the fight. So I wouldn't mind seeing him take a page out of John Jones's book and use those oblique kicks, as Joe Rogan would call them, to the knee, because Santos was having really good success with that, and also you're not putting yourself in too much danger when you're throwing that offense from distance. But also just high kicks at distance. Jan, I keep calling him Jan. Jan just, he'll just defend them. He won't throw much offense back. But yeah, high kicks from distance. Kicks as he's entering range. So as we talked about before, Jan will just kind of take 2 steps back out of range and then re-enter the range that he wants. So yeah, you can definitely exploit that. Start landing some kicks as he's going to be predictably putting his legs forward, his body forward, and generally his body is open for the body kick. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. But if you are getting caught in range, after throwing the body kick, then I'd probably just put it in the back pocket maybe later, because you don't really want to be hit by this guy. For Blachowicz, so leg kicks, Izzy has those skinny legs, and he sticks them out a fair bit, but also checking kicks if Israel's going to throw some, so that could really give him, because leg kicks are a big part of Israel's offense. So if you start leg kicking, or if you start checking his leg kicks, that takes away one of his big weapons. Also, I wouldn't mind seeing him mix in the wrestling. You know, he has gone to the wrestling a few times in the UFC, but definitely in this one, I think is, you know, just to mix it in, if nothing else. But if you're going to go to the wrestling, make sure you use the chain wrestling, because Israel's initial takedown defense is really nice. But yeah, use the strength advantage in the clinch, and in the grappling as well, because definitely going to be the stronger person in this fight. But at the start, yeah, start to land more volume than Izzy, as we talked about before. Just kind of get him behind on the scorecards, in combinations with hooks in tight, because he will be looking to land his own hooks in return, and I don't believe he has the same power that Jan has. So I think Izzy will definitely go away with the hands after he feels the power of Blachowicz in the pocket. But yeah, just look to, once you blitz in, land your 1-2, your 2-3, start finishing the combinations with a hook, because he leaves his chin up in the air, in the pocket. That's if he's going to counter you. If he just decides to evade and uses, footwork, then obviously there's nothing you can do about that. Maybe finish the combination with a kick, same as you're doing in the Reyes fight. But if he's just going to stay in the pocket and try to counter you, then definitely start throwing those hooks in tight. Alright, so I'll just show you guys what I'm talking about with the, hopefully you can see that, with the strikes, the kind of strikes that Israel goes for. So you see 28 or nearly 30% of his offense are the leg kicks. So he will, go to the head a fair bit as well. Doesn't generally go to the body too much, which I reckon he should probably in this fight. But the leg kicks, big part of his offense, and if Jan starts checking them, it's going to take a big part. It's going to take away a big part of Israel's offense. So that, and he has shown the ability to check them. And the Luke Rockhold fight, he checked them really well. But obviously, Israel's leg kicks much better, much more set up, much quicker, much more snap than Luke Rockhold's. But still, it's something to look out for, because Israel does have those, thin legs. You start checking his leg kicks, you start throwing a few back of your own, you could really take away the movement and also the leg kicks of Adesanya. So that's something I'd definitely look at if I was in Blachowicz's camp. Alright, so in conclusion, how I think it's going to go. I think Izzy fought smart versus Romero, but he nearly gave that fight away just on inactivity and letting Romero dictate the pace. And in my opinion, Jan's a better counterpuncher, like a better power counterpuncher. A counterpuncher who has a lot of power than Romero. So if Izzy's going to be tentative and on the back foot and really passive, I think I can definitely see Jan edging a decision here, because he can fight at that pace all day. So I think Jan's boxing, in close, will give Izzy pause for the counters that he usually goes for. But yeah, at range, Izzy likely just going to jab, kick him up, using his length and his speed advantage. He'll definitely have both in this one. But in the grappling, I don't think Jan will have too much success, but still, it's still a threat that Jan has, which Izzy doesn't really have. So definitely try and mix it up here. But Izzy should win. Style versus style, he should win this matchup. But I'm not too thrilled with the move up to 205. I don't really see the reason for it, or I just don't see the reason for it really. Like he weighs in underweight for most fights, and he's not a huge guy for 185. He's very skinny. And I think his style is like really good at 185. He has the length advantage, the speed advantage, and like just a lot of advantages over all these other guys at 185. But at 205, it's I guess I get that it's a challenge, but it's just it's an unnecessary risk in my opinion. He could come out and look really good, and then because I think Jan Blachowicz is a really solid fighter, so I don't think he's going to get the respect that he deserves if he beats Jan, because Jan just seems to be underrated, generally. Even by me, I underrate Jan a fair bit. I just think this is a tough matchup for Izzy. But with all that being said, I still think Izzy's going to win. I'd probably say by decision. I don't think he's going to get Jan out of there. I think it may be a bore fest. But yeah, so we'll see. Let's look at the betting lines. Alright, so as you can see, Adesanya's a huge favourite, about $1.40. In my opinion, the fight's a bit closer than that. It's probably like 57-43 or 56-44. I think it's closer to a pick'em than a blowout, in my opinion. So anything for Jan over $2.80, I think is a decent amount of value. The reason I haven't bet it yet is because I expect the line to go up before fight night. I expect Izzy to end up at around, $1.30, around that mark, maybe $1.33, and I expect Jan to end up at around $3.50 to around $4. So I'm kind of waiting for that, and then I'll probably chuck a unit or two on it. But I think I'm just not as confident as the bookies are on Adesanya in this matchup.